board meeting at 6:30 on December 3rd. Am I right? Yeah,
Yes.
3rd. We'll do a roll call, please.
In attendance tonight, we have Gail Ober, Brian Wolf, Dave Roulette, Rich McNeil, Bruce Cheney, Mike Delavecchia, Charlie St. Clair, Amy Levisick, Kristen Bastille, Director Rob Mora, Assistant Planning Director Tyler Carmichael, and I'm Savannah, the recording secretary.
Okay, thank you. I'll look for a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, raise your hands. You got one abstention?
I wasn't here,
So
so I'm
you're
going to
abstaining.
abstain, yeah.
So everybody but one abstention. Thank you. Okay, so we will now go to presentations. So we'll go to 6.1. This is PB 2025-027. This is 238 White Oaks Road, a conceptual. The applicant is proposing a cluster development with 12 two-family structures. Is the applicant here? Is anybody here for this?
He's here, he's just getting his people.
Getting his people? Yeah.
There's people out in the lobby as well.
We'll give them 2 minutes, and we're gonna make them wait. Move on. Shut this thing off.
Is that you making that noise?
And this here.
I was worried it was me.
This one.
Good evening, ready to go?
Ready?
Ready. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is John Cronin. I'm here on this conceptual application that you see. I see the plans are in before you, which is basically a well-developed and higher-end type duplex community up in White Oaks Road. Parcel's about 10 acres. Probably familiar with, there's an older home with a lot of classic style that's sitting there now. The initial plan was to probably try and renovate that, but that doesn't look like it's feasible at this time. So the applicant who's here this evening, Peter Grenier, Tony Dion and Mike Dion, as well as the architect is also here this evening, John Day, who I think did some beautiful drawings and designs for this particular project. It's located, a little bit of the frontage is a split between RR1 and RR2, which is basically single-family zones. Interesting, when you look at the table of uses, manufactured home park would be permitted on this lot. Little interesting to see how the density fits. I think your manufactured home density is similar to single-family with 2-acre lots, which I know has been criticized throughout the state as not being very friendly to manufactured housing parks. The neighboring property closest to the lake is a CR zone, which would permit this at the proposed densities. And that's kind of the takeoff on how this was presented. They looked at the land. All of the dimensional regulations will be satisfied. Typical setback, lot coverage, floor area ratio, that will all be met. And we recognize in meeting, Mara was kind enough to sit down with us and review it and quickly noted that we would have to go to get a variance to proceed back to you with a full application, which we recognize that that would be a requirement to do. But we thought it would be beneficial to us as and to you, which we've done in other cases, to submit the plans, have you take a look at it and give us some constructive comments before we go back and try and figure out how to present this to the ZBA. I'm just going to call up Peter Grenier here for a minute and just have him explain to you what the vision is for it, and then I'll ask Mr. Day to come up and just walk you through the plans. Just state your name for the
Hi,
record.
my name is Peter Grenier. So we're envisioning like a small community, very walkable, fence-lined, kind of like a vineyard kind of setting. Houses are all not facing each other, privacy off of the road, about 75 feet, so that it's, you know, it's still not inconveniencing any of the neighbors, kind of its own one in itself. We've got some great pictures and some great diagrams that our architect brought, John Day, and we'd love to show them to you.
John,
Good evening.
you guys some space.
Is this helpful to have a large set? I know you might have.
Perfect, yeah.
So I can set
There's
up.
Just that we can get it on the camera too.
Actually, if you want to set it right there, it could be perfect.
Is it right on here?
There's several easels if you need them.
Yeah, it's up here.
Here's actually my address.
Is that, you need a hand there, John?
You can keep, if you guys have anything you wanna add, you can, while you're setting that up.
So we're hoping that this community is just, it's kind of like the cutting edge.
Kinda like a what?
It's like a cutting edge kind of community where it's just, it's very homey. You'd want to walk it with your dog. That
I
type
hope
of
so.
community. Yeah, that type of community. We got some gardens in there. We got some great pictures.
So, if this is visible, sorry, I have it to your back. I won't bore you with all the pages because some of them are in that package and statistic based, but, aerial site, if you're familiar with it, and the existing, along here, and, White Oak there, coming up. And so, there's the existing home, which is.
Can you stop 1 second?
Sure.
Is there something wrong? This is not, is
Yes.
this being broadcast or not?
Yes.
It is. We just don't have it on the screen.
A little bit better so you can see. There you go.
That's good. I just wasn't sure because that wasn't on the screen. I know there may be people watching tonight, so.
They can see it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's all I wanted to make sure. I apologize. Thank you.
Sure thing. Hopefully you can see this. So the site plan here, there's the commercial resort that John referenced, development parcel there. Here's our parcel in yellow with the scenic road coming along, and the abutting neighbors, as you can see. The initial site plan, it's fairly open.
We've got no signal back here. We can't see anything now.
It disappeared. Yeah, I need the remote for the TVs. We missed the last page.
Go back one.
Got help.
Back up.
Technology.
I was just gonna say, this is great.
Is it streaming okay?
Savannah, put the.
Hey.
You may continue, please.
So you can see the lake to the left, of course, and the bounded box is the existing site in yellow, abutting this development below. There's White Oaks there, and then the view across Clifton Mountain. Just the uncolored version of it, there's not much on the site. There's a tree line along the wall, a tree line along the lower border, but the rest of it is fairly open and a pretty good grade and pitch from the road that you don't quite perceive until you're on it, that it drops almost 40 feet across the site. So there is a decent pitch there.
Since you mentioned the tree line, is that going to remain?
Pardon me?
Will both of the tree lines remain?
Yes, and probably increased.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I think it's
We got an extensive landscape plan that we're gonna submit to you as well, so a lot of
conversation.
flowers, a lot of
Well, the trees are,
trees.
they're mature,
Yep,
and there are some
yep.
specimen trees there that want to be reserved in that buffer, and some that are perhaps dying that want to be replaced. So there's some remediation that we've discussed in looking at it as well, and the existing stone wall remaining as well, and the same cut in with the pillars that are there and the gates to remain. And so it's just over 10 acres, as you saw on the site, and does conform to all the other setbacks currently. Here's the color version. You can see a buffer to remain. These trees here, there's not a lot of buffer there, but we've proposed more screening, just selectively, different tree sizes, and then there's not buffer along that side. This would remain. This to also be planted and manicured there, so that there's oblique views, but not just this grass line. Let me go to the most helpful ones, which I think is our site plan. So, in regards to the site plan, which is the most current and recently developed, you can see the planted buffer here in the 75-foot setback there. A single ring road in, which comes from the existing entrance through the stone wall cut through, which rings a center court of gardens and a central walking path and trees. These would be along gravel paths, not asphalt, a chip top road through in this ring, and then the houses, as Peter had mentioned, duplex double units, but not all the same. So there are 3 different designs that are initially proposed, so that they can be configured and laid out so that you don't have backyards and front yards. They look well from all sides because you have views along the road, you have views along the paths, and then these are the walking paths through to take advantage of the site and getting out. These are common yards there, so they're common to the HOA. They're not big privatized backyards, as you would see with maybe single-family development. And then these paths through, again, as well, to be able to utilize the acreage of the site, and the center green as well. So cobblestones, split rail fences, wildflower garden, local fields, grasses, things like that, so that there's not wide open lawns. There's room around the houses, certainly, but they range, as you can see, they're typically a story and a half, not 2 to 3 stories, so dormered, and architecturally detailed on all 4 sides, so that as these come together, very few houses have 2 front doors side by side, or 2 parking spaces side by side, so they are oblique, but also can take advantage of the views and radiate across. And then this tree line here, tree line as well, and then, of course, trees in the yard. So a couple of initial renders showing the existing granite there and the wall, planting, tall trees that remain, new trees infused, cobble apron and chip top road through, and then a view to the center court there, which would have the trees around and the central walking area with some benches and ways to utilize, again, the property rather than totally privatizing it. So the HOA has a community that they can walk and use and engage, and building a neighborhood rather than fenced off, walled off. There are 3 layouts. They all have 2-car garages. Part of the HOA conversation, if this progresses forward, would be not having places to store things outside. So other cars, boats, things like that would be off-site storage, so that it keeps more of a gardened and natural landscape as well, so that there's not expansive paving to store things out front, so that that's not part of the overall program. Split rails and gardens to delineate yards, not tall barricade fences. Front porches on this one. And so they have a design style of detached garage with a mudroom. It's not literally detached, but with a mudroom. First floor suite for first floor living, and then bedrooms above, great room and kitchen, and access and daylight to the yard as well. So there are 3 of these, and they've been designed initially. There's the second floor as well, and these are in your packet, but there's the second floor as well. And they range from 2,200 to 2,600 square feet. 3 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms. There's more 3s than 4s currently. And as you can see, a lot of the roofs are lower to keep the scale down, so that there's daylight in, but also as the site dips away, what you see is the first few houses, and they dip as they go, so they don't get taller across the lot. These things look wanting to collapse on me. And some initial exterior elevations, painted white clapboard, white trim, in some of them, natural aging, cedar shingles, historic New England and Greek Revival detailing, things you would see in New Hampshire towns, things you would probably see in fishing towns as well. So keeping the scale low and a bit more, it's called Cape style, but it's really a bit more revival. So things that are more agrarian and vernacular is where we started, from the developers and property owners' direction as well. And so there's one with a front porch, dormer up above. You can see these are 1.5 stories. So rather than 2-story windows with dormers above, bringing their overall height down well below the threshold of what's allowable, just to keep the scale in the daylight and among the neighbor yards. Carriage-style doors, 2/2 windows and other detailing, mostly dormers for second floor light, as you can see. Bays and panel details. So, we appreciate that aspect of it. Let's see the next one. Secondary plan as well, there's another option, front porch, side-loaded garage there, so these can connect fairly well. This is not a totally dissimilar layout, again, about 2,200 square feet in this, 2,600 total square feet in this one, between the first and second floors, one slightly larger.
Skip over to the fencing.
Yeah, so some more exterior elevations. Again, exteriors, breaking down the scale on the roofs. I'll get to the Judy pages, which I think is most helpful. Last 3 pages. There's a breakout in there of how these units would potentially link together, but image-wise, for overall look and feel, and some examples of our past work and other projects that are similar. Typical A gables in New England, shutters, shingle, white trim, carriage-style doors. Again, similarly here with chimneys, and 1.5 stories being one of the main elements. Some smaller broken-down wings off the center. Here's another good example. So, some white clapboard again with shingle style, exterior trim and painted as an architectural direction. And not all the same, 3 styles ideally. Again, similar, bay windows, gambrels, split fence, hedging. I don't think we have a lot of residential hedge. Be more organic and vernacular. Plantings, doors and overhang, entries and details, these little copper roofs. For initial design, and then landscape-wise, in our initial plan, loose and organic bordered plantings, split rail fencings, the stone wall, the cobble aprons, again, planted paths with perennials and things that last through the years, so they don't all die, and then it looks barren through the winter. Again, cobble paths and walkways through the entire site, that center orchard and planted field, and then again, more pathways in these split rail fence details so that it's not stockade and barricade fence or all stone walls, so it is more organic as you look across the site. That's the last one. I think this thing's just about done.
I don't think you left anything out.
Yeah. It's a lot to take in, so.
It's in your package there, but,
You earned your money.
and the easel gave up.
So we're looking for like a little feedback on, your thoughts, direction.
My feedback personally would be that when you come back before us, you're not gonna have to do much.
No.
Go ahead, Gail, you have something you wanna ask?
Just a couple of questions. I noticed the lot, that part of the lot that's closest to the boulevard, it would be the lake side of the lot. What is the slope grade there? And if it's steep, how are you gonna prevent that from running down into the properties below it?
It's gradual.
It's
Um,
gradual?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's fairly
it's not real
gradual across the 10 acres. It's not steep and it's.
Okay,
We'd
all
have,
right.
we'd have to, if there are issues there through, with the landscape and the engineers, just making sure that building runoff is captured and recharged, not just poured down below.
Right.
Yeah,
We would
so-
retain all our water on our
Yeah.
property.
Okay, and those stone walls that you indicated, are those boundary storm walls?
They currently exist as boundary stone
Okay,
walls.
because there's a state law referencing that you might want to familiarize yourself with, that if stone walls create a boundary, you cannot remove them.
Yep.
Yeah, our
Yep.
intention is to keep
Keep
that one, as
everything,
well as the
yep.
opening too. It's pretty wall, it's in nice shape too.
All right, that was it. I was just curious about the steepness of the back grade and what it would affect down below.
Any other questions?
You mentioned only 2 cars are allowed, you can't park outside, is?
You can park outside, yes,
Okay.
in the drive, but there's 2-car garage. Our conversations have been that it's not extended paving for boats, trailers,
Right.
snowmobiles, things that, are other season activities. Those would have to be stored off-site. So there is parking on each lot.
Okay.
Amy?
So in the packet that you gave to us prior to tonight, it had 3 different designs of how the layout might be. Have you chosen the one with the circle?
That's
It
our
is.
preferred.
Well, it's my preferred as well, so
It's
it's a
least
choice.
impactful of the neighbors. It
Yeah.
creates its own little community.
No,
moves that
I very
circulation
much
to the
like it as
middle.
well. Listen, they chose well.
It offered us
just
the most
glad
open
that you're
space
preferred.
and
It's
the
my
least.
preferred.
It offered us the most open space
It
at
did.
like 16%.
Right.
And the least impervious coverage, having that in the center and the pathways through it.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Do you have an open space ratio from developed to open?
It's, we are 16% developed to 84% open at the moment,
That's
it
good,
is
that's a
schematic.
good ratio.
Okay, anybody else? I think you're off to a good start.
Off to a
with
good
this
start.
project.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you both.
Thank
All
you
right,
for your time.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Audience did too, thank you.
The audience.
Okay, next up, we have 6.2 PB 2025-028 Laconia Village Conceptual. This is the applicant is proposing mixed-use redevelopment of the former Laconia State School. So is there somebody here from that group? Come on. Hold on.
Is it open or online? Should be.
All right, great, thank you.
No problem.
If you can just
Good evening,
introduce yourself, thank
Ladies
you.
and gentlemen, my name is Michael Kettenbach. I'm the proponent for this project. I have been in commercial, industrial, and residential development for 50 years. I look a lot younger, though.
Mike, could you just tell us where you're from, too?
I'm from Rye, New Hampshire, Rye Beach.
Thank you.
That's where I reside. I've been involved in aspects. My team here averages about 20 years with me, some 40, some 45. I'll introduce you to them tonight. We have a planner, engineers, lawyers, and project manager here tonight. And I'm sure most of you know where I come from and what I've done in the past. So we developed, our current project is underway. We're gradually getting done with that. And we decided this would be a natural fit for us because we do large projects. And we thought we'd bring that expertise here and try to build something that we would be proud of and the community would be proud of, and that the community would participate in working with us to develop this as a functional village within your community. Like I said, we're pleased to be here, and I'd like to introduce my team. Justin Kiernan is our planner. Kevin Smith is the project manager. Jimmy D'Angelo is one of our engineers, traffic experts. Mr. Pollock is my attorney and has been for 30 years, and his boss was my lawyer before that. So we're well represented, and we have a great deal of expertise, and we have a lot of knowledge about how we do things, and we can answer all your questions and proceed. I'd like to do a conceptual thing for you tonight so you can see where we're coming from, and then we can work together to try and come together with a workable plan for everybody. So I'll start this off with Kevin Smith right now. Okay, thank you.
Good evening to everyone. As Michael mentioned, my name is Kevin Smith, and project manager with Pillsbury Realty Development on this project. In a prior life, I was the town manager in Londonderry for 9 years. So I appreciate the work you all do, having sat on the other side of the table for many years. But it's exciting to be working on this project now, and looking forward to getting your feedback after you see the conceptuals this evening. Can you all see what's on the screen? Okay, just wanted to make sure. So just an agenda for this evening. Mike's already introduced the team. We're going to talk about the opportunity and vision that we see for this project and what we're looking at as the 6 organizing principles for it. There again is the team. You'll see we used all of our high school photos for that. Just talking a little bit about our track record. Again, as Mike talked about, we're in the midst of wrapping up the Woodmont Commons development in Londonderry. That was a 600-acre mixed use development that was previously mostly all apple orchards, although it spans both sides of the highway on I-93, where there's currently a new exit going in there as well. But there you'll see on the pictures there kind of the conceptual we started off with, and how it's been developing out in different sections within that development over time. City Collective, Justin Kiernan is here this evening. They're out of North Carolina, but they've worked on projects all over the country, including here in New England, and Justin actually has a bit of a connection to the Lakes region as well. And then we're also working with the civil engineer, T.F. Moran. And Bob Duvall would have been here this evening. He's got a family obligation he had to be at, but he's worked very closely with us on the Woodmont project as well. Just the process to date, just to kind of rehash where we've been and where we're going. In July of this year, the state put the state school out to bid. We entered into a purchase and sale agreement for the site with the state in September. In early October, we did meet with city staff to talk through the aspirations that we see for the site. In mid-October, we met with the technical city staff to discuss the site logistics and requirements. Obviously, we're here today to talk through a conceptual plan as we continue our due diligence period. And as I said, look forward to getting feedback from you all. And then hopefully in early spring, we'll be presenting to you our overall development plan to be approved. Just to clarify, these aren't site plans that we'll be coming in with in the spring. It's the development plan that goes along with your city ordinance in this particular zone. It will be the guidelines for how we move forward with future site plans. But it will be looking at things like where we're making the connections to the various utilities, the density that will be allowed for the overall project, and also future traffic as well. And so we anticipate going through the technical review committee over the coming months for that before we obviously present that to you all. And with that, I'm going to ask Justin to come up and guide us through the next set of slides.
Good evening, everybody. I get to talk about the fun stuff. I'm Justin Kernan. I'm a managing partner at City Collective, a national and global architecture, urban planning, and urban design company. and we've been engaged by the team to think through what this vision and plan could be. So I'm going to walk through a little bit to set the table and kind of talk through where we're kind of headed as a team. The first thing that we kind of want to help just remind everybody of, I know everyone at this, in this room today knows where the state school site is. It's absolutely infamous for this process, but just where it sits within the larger lakes region, its impact is not trivial for the larger identity of the place. It goes far beyond the existing site. If you look more closely at the site today, it's something that's incredibly well connected. The site is known for its existing institutional buildings, but there's actually a lot of other really interesting and quite amazing components of the site that we can build on to deliver a community that Laconia is really looking for. Things like the existing sports complex, the views down to the lake, the nature that exists today, the existing wetlands, the existing trees. These are all things that we can actually build upon in a really, really creative way. So with all those opportunities in mind, we've collectively come up with the vision for Laconia Village, which we are thinking of this as in the intersection of civic life, lush natural surroundings, and active recreation. Looking at the site, we do this really with 6 key design strategies. The first is to identify and preserve the rich natural features of the site. So tree canopy, steeper slopes, existing open spaces, existing wetlands that are there today. The second is to link the site together with a primary main street, so coming up from 106 all the way up to the existing sports complex. The third is to create 3 walkable neighborhoods that are punctuated by 3 unique kind of use anchors. Fourth is to create east-west street network that brings people down to the existing trail network, the Ahern Park, down to the waterfront that can connect into this larger kind of recreational and natural network that exists today. Fifth is to infill with highly connected street network, something that makes this naturally walkable and pedestrian oriented. And sixth is to front all those acres with a mix of use and a density that steps down from that center main street all the way down to the existing kind of character and identity that surrounds the site. Altogether, that adds up to what we're seeing as Laconia Village, which is this larger mixed-use recreational village. And you'll see on the plan, of course, a variety of housing types, pockets of amenity and retail, this larger green ribbon, this continuation of trails and paths, and some key anchors like the civic green space and grocery store. When you look at the plan a little bit more closely, there's 5 key moments that really tell the story of what that character of place is looking like. The first is the mixed-use gateway. So this is standing at the 106 now and stepping just immediately into the site. You're looking down the center of that main street. You're seeing vibrant kind of active retail that activates that. You're seeing the main street beyond, and this is really the primary anchor for the grocery store. The second is the residential streets. So looking at, having smaller scale, I very much enjoyed the presentation before us. Vernacular architecture, something feels uniquely Laconia, uniquely New Hampshire, and even preserving 3 of the existing buildings that are on site today and repurposing them to have a residential life beyond what it is now. The third is the civic campus. So this is at the center of the site. It's in the second neighborhood. There's a larger kind of public civic green space. We think that that's a good opportunity to have some kind of civic function. So inviting the city, whether that is city offices, whether that is some kind of a museum, whether that is some kind of library, we think that's a great opportunity to invite the city to have a primary role as not only as a tenant, but as an identity for this place. The fourth is the neighborhood trails. This is a place that is deeply, deeply connected into nature into the existing recreational area that's beyond the site. So having residential uses that front and engage that to connect into the larger surroundings, including to Ahern Park and to Lake Winnisquam. And then the fifth is the recreational heart. So this is actually all the way up by the existing sports complex, looking down at the proposed Main Street with a public green in the foreground, a community center there on the left, and actually at your back is the state, is at the sports complex. And beyond, these are actually the best views for the entire site. You're looking down to the existing topography beyond, and you can actually see Lake Winnisquam in the distance. We have stood there ourselves and have enjoyed that view. So add it all up together, this is what this looks like from the sky. Not that most people get to look at it this way, in terms of, you know, the wetlands, play spaces, trails, a big variety of housing options, the retail gateway, and just minutes from, obviously, downtown. With that plan in mind, you know, want to talk through a little bit of organizing principles for the different way we've approached this. The first organizing principle is phasing. So any site that's 200 and some odd acres, it will not be built at once. It cannot be built at once. And so thinking through how this gets built, not only in day one, but at the very, very end, is very critical. And so we're actually thinking about the phasing first and foremost as in form of neighborhoods. So neighborhood 1 being the neighborhood hamlet, neighborhood 2 being the village center, and neighborhood 3 being the wellness district. That then gets phased out into a series of mixed-use developments along the way. So you'll see the kind of the blend of uses is between commercial, civic, and residential in some capacity in all those neighborhoods. And all those neighborhoods have a significant residential component that helps drive that neighborhood forward. That's then broken up further into a series of phases, so we're not able to deliver everything at once just in terms of the market, and so breaking that down to have a sense of place at every step of the way is critical for us. The second organizing principle is using programming as a strategy to cluster activities. So the 3 neighborhoods have 3 primary acres. I alluded to this a little bit earlier. The first neighborhood having the grocery store as an anchor, the second neighborhood having the civic plaza or the civic function as an anchor, and the third neighborhood having the community center complementing the existing sports complex as an anchor. The third organizing principle is thinking through a really thoughtful, pedestrian-friendly, pedestrian-oriented, walkable street network. This is not insignificant to make mixed-use walkable places thrive and work. And so we're proposing a suite of streets that allow us to do that. The first is the walkable Main Street, which I've talked a little bit about, and all this is based on national best practices. The third is the neighborhood corridors, so those east-west connections where I can stand anywhere on the site, go east and west, and immediately get to the trail network, the larger recreational network, get to Ahern Park quite easily, get to Lake Winnisquam quite easily. The third is this Green Street network, so we've actually brought the existing natural environment up and through the 3 neighborhoods, so there's a primary connection on both sides of the site. And there's a series of quaint neighborhood streets and alleys that make the neighborhood fabric feel very, very walkable and pedestrian-oriented. That's then further punctuated by a very robust and integrated open space network. There's approximately 90 acres of preserved or reinstated open space in some way, shape, or form on the site, which we think is a huge win for future residents. The fifth is a strategy around framing views. So one of the most significant things about the site and what makes Laconia so special is the combination of topography and views to the larger kind of ecosystem around you. And so we've had the heights of all of the development. At its highest point is 4 stories on Main Street. and then actually fades away down to 2 stories on either side into the development. So we not only have a scale that matches the existing surroundings, but also naturally frames the existing views that happen to the water and to the surroundings. The 6th is a robust suite of building typologies. So you'll see in the 3 neighborhoods around those primary clusters, around those primary anchors, we have some active ground floor retail, we have some smaller professional offices, we have some civic functions, and we have some hospitality functions. And all of that is to drive a core amount of activity and energy around those key public spaces that you see in all 3 of those neighborhoods and provide amenity for residents and the larger community. And then the 6th and final one is creating a really robust cross-section of housing choice. So you'll see up onto the main street, there is a larger kind of multifamily style residential, but we've also provided in the yellow there, you'll see towards the neighborhood, a pretty big cross-section of missing middle housing. So that ranges everything from single-family homes to townhouses to multiplexes, really providing all kinds of typologies and all kinds of family situations for people that are looking for it. And I will invite Kevin back up for next steps. Thank you.
So again, just to kind of reiterate what I started off saying, we're going to go through the development plan process with you all next and with city staff. Our due diligence period ends on January 28th of next year, so not too long from now. And we do anticipate bringing that overall development plan before you all again in early spring of 2025. And then after we have approval of that development plan is when you'll start seeing the more detailed engineered site plans that we'll be coming forward with in phase 1. And so with that, happy to open it up to questions, feedback, comments.
I have one question. This is such a huge undertaking. When you're done, it might be how many years from now, whatever it is, what is your projection of how many residents will be living there in all your housing units? Just a rough guess.
Yeah, so I'm going to flip back for you for a minute just so you can see the total program. So we're anticipating a total of about 2,000 units. The average household in the U.S. is about 1.8 persons per unit. So you're talking about 3,000, 3,500 people that would live here at full build out as drawn.
All right, thank you. That's a good answer.
Sure.
And the other question I have before yes.
That's housing. You're not saying that's livable space for people to be in.
That's right.
So all of the commercial stuff, and that's separate from the 2,000?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
3,000. The other question I had, which I'm sure will come up a million times, but at the intersection of your Main Street, I guess, and North Main Street, or as you called it, 106, do you have any idea what kind of an intersection you're planning there, or is the state going to require something, or?
It's going to require for all of us to go through a more detailed design. We've tentatively kind of penciled in some kind of a rotary or roundabout there.
Rotary would be great, okay. That's enough.
But it needs to be designed and worked through.
Nope, that's all I wanted to know. I'm personally, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of residents, so tired of traffic lights, especially the ones right up the road there that run all night long. And so good, that's good to hear, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, and just on that note too, in the Woodmont Commons development, we similarly did that. Rather than using traffic lights, we used a series of rotaries along the main strip, and it's worked out very well. Serves as calming traffic, but you don't have to come to a dead stop.
At 2 in the morning, it's a wonderful thing. I'll open it up to anybody else here on the board. Questions or comments? Anybody?
I just had one in general, Charlie.
Sure.
Do you have a sense of what your build-out time frame is? I mean, are you looking at building this over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? I mean, we approved, just for example, we approved a development in Laconia called Southdown. Oh, probably 50 years ago. And when I sat on the zoning board fewer than 3 years ago, we were still approving some pickup lots kind of down in there. I mean, I'm saying that that whole process wound out over a long period of time, so there was no real shock value to our infrastructure, police, fire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was just wondering if you have a sense of, if we were to greenlight this tonight, how long would it take for you to get through, all things being equal, money available, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Get out to 3B. What are you looking at? I mean, do you have something in your head?
Yeah, I think the not to give like an absolute, but to give
Well, no,
you
I don't want an absolute,
a
but-
frame of reference is usually a development timeline for one phase is a minimum of 3 years.
Okay, all right.
So-
No, that's a good answer, because
So
that gives us a sense of what
It
you're
depends on how quickly it cycles, how much it gets, how quickly it gets absorbed,
Mm-hmm.
and then that will give greater confidence and speed to the next phase, depending on how that plays out. So, I think you saw a handful of, 6, 7 phases there.
Right, and well,
to
that's
give
why
you- to
I
give you a
asked that,
sense.
because there are certain accommodations that the city itself
Right. Sure.
would have to start making in terms of the public services we offer. Just generally, one of them I can think of, because we also have a lot of other development down there, is we might need to build a police substation out there.
And I will say,
And that's gotta be a consideration.
those are not new or unknown,
Okay.
considerations. Those are things we've started to have conversations with technical staff.
Okay.
And that will be the things that we start to work through together in the technical review committee.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anybody else?
Justin, any of the existing buildings gonna be preserved?
You said yes.
Right now, we are showing three buildings, and I'm gonna quickly go back to the plan so you can see it a little more clearly. Maybe. It's a big site, so there's a lot of buildings.
It's a big site, and it's really gonna, I think most people would agree, is gonna change an awful lot in that area.
So
Huge,
if you
huge
can
undertaking.
see my cursor, see these kind of 3 cross buildings, this one here,
Yeah.
and this one here. We've worked the plan to create a walkable street network around those 3 existing buildings. There's 3 or 4 that are, let's say, the least complicated to renovate and reposition. We think it's possible. We have to do a lot of due diligence, but it's possible. And to work in with the topography, which is difficult, and to work in with the existing kind of vegetation that's there, we think those three in particular are reasonable to be able to kind of keep, preserve, and reposition.
Very good.
I noticed on your picture there of Main Street, looking at it, I might be off base here, but I always thought there was kind of an uphill slope on that property. But you're showing, the picture looks like it's just straight ahead.
Yeah, so there's definitely a slope. What you're seeing, the curves on the plan look like they're aesthetic, but the streets are aligned to minimize the amount of slope that you're going to ask pedestrians to actually traverse. And that's where all of the kind of like curvature comes from, is trying to deal with the nuance of that. The problem, the benefit of having a highly vegetated treed site is that you have existing tree canopy. The negative about that is that we can't regrade a lot of things, because that would include removing the vegetation that we want to keep. And so the street network, though looks a little funky and fancy, it's purely just to minimize the slope as much as possible, even though this is a highly topographic site. So we did as best we could with the slope without actually doing like a tabula rasa style development.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Amy.
Just out of curiosity, are you going to be doing your major infrastructure first, or are you going to do that in phases as well? So you're going to make your main street, put in your septic, your water, all the way up Main Street? to the end, to Eastman?
The plan is to do it in phases, yeah. I mean, eventually it'll make its way all the way up the hill, but the plan is to put the infrastructure in phases as we're building those phases out, and then also make improvements to the off-site infrastructure as we have to do that, sewer, water, gas.
Okay, so your Main Street will not be constructed at one point?
That is not the plan at this
Okay.
time, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
We're looking forward to working with you. It's a very exciting development. Just the timing, you know, you said January 28th due diligence ends. It was, we're gonna have to do a lot of due diligence to go along with that. What does the timing look like for us to get the detail from you on, like, number of structures and, you know, what you were alluding to with 2,000 units, so that we can evaluate, you know, our municipal capacity just to support something like this, and then to do the planning we will need to do
Right.
to go along with you.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned previously, our next step will be to take our vision and our plan for the amount of density we're looking for to the staff level and begin working with the planners and engineers on the feasibility of wanting to do what we want to do. Sewer capacity, water capacity, traffic, off-site traffic improvements, looking at all of that. That'll go through, from what I understand, the technical review process. Once they feel like that's in good shape, they'll then bring it to the board, and the board will deliberate on that overall development plan. Again, we have to have that master plan in place before we can ever bring in a single site plan, because we need to know what it is we can and can't do, you know, according to our program. But I appreciate you saying too that you're ready to work with us and want to work with us. We want to work with the board as well, and very much look at this as a collaborative project. Obviously, it's a big project for the city. I think it's probably a transformative project as well.
It is. This is like taking the town of Sanborn and dropping it at the
I'm
north
just
end of
gonna
our
say,
town.
it's like, right now, we have 10,000 households in the city of Laconia. You're
Right.
looking at adding you're looking at adding 2,000. So that's basically increasing the size of our city by 20%. And that's just households, not number of people who live here.
Yeah.
That's a 2000 census statistic, by the way. So in case anyone 2020, I'm sorry, in case anyone wants to know where that number came from. So I mean, this is a huge thing for the city of Laconia at all levels, not just that
Okay,
neighborhood.
Amy, you have another question?
Just one more. So sorry, I am the Director of Recreation Facilities, my other hat. And the sports complex that you have across the street, Robbie Mills, is something that I manage. I do use the field on that side for parking. I didn't notice a parking lot there. I did notice a lovely community center, which I'm all for. But would you still allow us to use that as parking during major events at the sports facility until you're doing these things, and then we can share parking with the community center once phase?
Yeah, I would say I think we'd want to be as reasonably accommodating as possible. If you talk to the town of Londonderry and the areas where it hasn't been developed, there's been very much a working relationship between the owner of the project and the town, and letting the town continue to do things that it was doing previously. So we can definitely talk about that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll just add to that point, one of the great benefits of having a larger mixed-use kind of philosophy is it introduces the optionality around shared parking, in which if you had single uses, that just doesn't work. So it just gives us a lot more options that we can kind of negotiate and work through together.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I have one last question. It's probably somewhere in here, but the distance from North Main Street to your grocery store there, how much is that?
I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, though I will say for everybody, scale of this site is very deceiving. So just looking at proportionally, that grocery store is one whole grocery store away from North Main Street, to give you some sense of scale. So if I had to put a number on it, it's probably like 150 feet away from the curb line, to give you, order of magnitude.
We'll remember that number, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you all very much, and hold on, and I appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you back here. And I know you're gonna be working with the staff a lot, so,
We will be.
thank you. Okay, now we're gonna open this up for citizens' comments for matters on the agenda, which this would be, and I wanna remind everybody that it's here for that we're not gonna be taking questions or answering questions, no questions for the applicants, we just want your commentary on what you've seen tonight. So if you have concerns or suggestions, by all means, this is the time to do it. So, come on up and just state your name and where you live, and that's good, we'll be good to go, thank you.
David Wadsworth, resident of Laconia, private business owner, one of your neighbors. I was looking at your organizing principle 6, residential typologies, residential housing choices to suit every household makeup. It's a 200-acre site, so I just want to get the numbers right.
David, but remember, we just want.
I'm just asking my question.
Okay, but not of those guys, that's all.
Okay. The question is, it's a 200-acre site. Looks like about 100 acres is going to be for green space, and 100 acres is going to be for development. If you had a 100-acre site of single-family houses, quarter of an acre, you could get 400 houses in there, $300,000 to $500,000 to sell, generating $5,000 to $6,000 a year in property tax for the city. That's what the neighborhoods are around it. If you look at this piece of property, there are 6 neighborhoods around it: Round Bay Road, Shore Drive, Morningside Drive, Marshall Court, Anthony Drive, and Eastman Shores. And all of these neighborhoods are at least quarter acre or above private houses. What they're talking about is taking 100 acres and putting 2,000 units into it. That's 5/100ths of an acre per unit. That's really jamming people together. And it's not the character of the neighborhoods that are around this. So when they say residential housing choices to suit every household makeup, there's not a single thing in here for single-family houses on quarter of an acre or larger lots. And I think that's a big mistake, and it's going to change this whole neighborhood. And to just jam 2,000 units into 100 acres, I think, is a big mistake. That's my comment.
But before you go, David, I appreciate that, David. So, these are valid points. So when they come up to make these points,
It's annotated in the minutes.
it is in the minutes, okay, and then, when the applicant comes back, David, for the individual,
They're taking the input from this.
Yes.
right,
So right now, we're gonna
Right,
annotate it, put it in the minutes,
but-
and then
but-
later on, when they come back with actual site plans and subdivisions, all that
that's
stuff.
when you guys can come back and,
Right.
really,
We think the base case for the city of Laconia should be to build and develop this gem of a property similar to what surrounds it, which is single-family homes within a green space, quarter of an acre or larger, and to build a very sustainable tax base, property tax base for the city of Laconia. That's my comment.
thank you very much, David. Anybody else? Come on up, please come on up.
My name's Karen Fiedler-Wolf, 101 Eastman Shore Road South. So my question is an estimate of what they think the residential property will be, the market rate will be. What are we using these different residential uses for? Because obviously, just like this gentleman said, it's going to be a very dense area. So we need to know what the plan is. Are they, are you looking for rental properties? What's the percentage of market rate versus under market rate? That's something my concern is.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Good evening.
Hi, I'm Alan Beadle. I live across the lake, and it sounds like off of North Main, there'll be about 150-foot buffer, is what I heard from the market, or whatever the grocery store is. And I would ask that we consider something as a buffer, so that the lakefront properties on Lake Opeechee don't have have the lights from Market Basket coming in. Love to have a Market Basket there, by the way. But it would be really nice if in that 150 feet, we could plant some trees and not have that be the view from Lake Opeechee. Thanks.
Very important. Thank you, Alan. Anybody else? Come on up. Thank you.
Jonathan Muller from Old North Main Street. I guess my biggest concern is how we have, from this development, filtering into Laconia once you hit the fire station or once you get past O'Shea Industrial Park, it's very narrow. How are you gonna fit 6,000 cars through there? Because everybody has at least one car.
Are you talking about North Main Street?
Yeah, you got North Main Street. Once you hit Blueberry Lane, gets very narrow. How are you gonna get services through there? And then filling everybody down Franklin. So that's all I have.
Thank you. These are all very good comments and questions. Anybody else? This is a good, come on up.
My name's Jackie Fountain. I live on Morningside Drive. I'm just wondering, how will you handle the school system? We're short teachers as it is. And how are you gonna pay for it all? You're gonna have a lot more. And are these schools going to be big enough to handle all these people that might be moving in?
Valid point. Because I always wonder how many people are gonna be using them as second homes, but you just don't know. This is such a big development. Thank you. I saw Pat. You wanna come up? Please.
Hi, I'm Patrick Wood. I live on Shore Drive, also a member of the Housing Authority. We're very concerned about the affordable housing situation in Laconia, so we're hopeful that part of this project will involve the Housing Authority as well as other developers in the area who can help provide affordable housing. And while quarter-acre lots are nice to have, it's really hard to build an affordable house on a quarter-acre lot. So there's going to be some compression and fitting things in that needs to happen in order to provide the affordable housing. So that's something we want you to seriously consider when they're coming in with their proposals. How are they working with the Housing Authority? How are they working with other housing development entities in this community? Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Come on up. You have another question, sure, a statement, comment.
I'd also like to know if these developers also know about what was proposed back in September, I believe, for the Housing Champion Award that some of our council members are pushing. They want to use a 10-acre lot across the street from this state school for tiny home communities. Do they want to develop this beautiful property with these tiny homes that could potentially be for the homeless population?
Okay, thank you.
We need to be aware of that.
Anybody else? It's your last shot until they're back again. Okay, we'll close the public hearing at, not comments, at 7:34. Thank you very much.
We want to take a 5-minute recess.
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break right now. Thank you. golly, I'm gonna keep him around for when I need to make an announcement.
Well,
Or you just
he
turn
was
it
an
back
E6 or an E7 in the military. Every now and then you gotta put your command voice on. We tease him.
Okay. Okay, where are we here?
Oh, there's one right across the street.
That's supposed to be on the right.
The Doobie Building, that's the
Okay.
one that we.
Oh, yeah, this is.
Okay, we're gonna continue with the meeting now.
Rewind that one.
Gail, Mr. Wolf,
We gotta do
hello?
There's one up there.
Counselor Cheney? Thank you. We're gonna go to 8.1. This is PB. Can we close that door up there?
He's getting it.
Thank you. This is PB 2025-02275 Endicott Street North. This is, applicant is proposing to amend the previous approved site to remove the sidewalk requirement. Now, this is carried over. Do we need to put this back on the table or do anything like that? Or are we all set just to move
You're all
forward?
set to move forward with that.
Okay, so, do we need the applicant back up or do we just pick this back
Nope,
up?
you can call the applicant back up and have him.
Good evening, I'm Jonathan Booton. I represent the applicant for this waiver, Charles Valier and Bill Ryder, through Chart Eye LLC, which is the actual owner of the property. I realize we're on a continuance from the prior meeting on the request for a waiver of the site plan requirement, and which would require an amendment to the site plan approval that had been previously issued by the town. And in reviewing the town's site plan regulations and the purpose and benefits, you know, I don't think this project is consistent with furthering any of the objectives that are in your site plan regulations. I certainly understand the need for them. I actually represent other towns and understand where you want to kind of get ahead of some of the development. But, you know, one of the statements in the early part of the purpose and benefits is that they provide important linkage between types of land uses in the community and are essential for moving people from place to place. This sidewalk doesn't accomplish any of that. It doesn't move anybody anywhere. It doesn't provide a convenient place to walk and connect with other modes of transportation. There is no train or bus or any other mode of transportation that they can connect to, or even to another parking area. Along Route 3, I don't think it would safely provide a place for people to gather, socialize, exercise, or engage in small-scale commerce. It's not a place you want people pulling over and trying to engage in business on the side of the road. I don't think it provides a safe place for free speech activities or for the delivery of mail and packages for the same reason. You know, having trucks stop there is going to create a safety hazard instead of improving anything for the citizens of Laconia. And I don't think it would provide a safe mode of transportation that's accessible and usable for people or by people of all ages and all abilities. You know, especially where that sidewalk ends in either a steep slope going uphill towards Meredith or a steep slope going downhill towards Laconia. Where the sidewalk ends, there's no real safe place to get off of it and get onto the road to continue to walk. I mean, really what I think this is going to do is encourage people to walk or bike and end up on Route 3, which I think is less safe than having no sidewalk and people realizing it's not a great place to walk and driving to where they need to go. You know, the Department of Transportation has already stated they don't want the sidewalk right up against the road with a curb, because it interferes with all the drainage and other things that they have in place there. And to put it further away from the road means that the sidewalk is going to abut the swale that's currently there, and you're going to have a drop-off right next to the sidewalk all along its length in between there and Route 3. How is someone going to get, well, if they're riding a bicycle on it, they'd have to go through a drainage swale to get up on Route 3 to leave it. I don't think it really meets the purpose of why you would want sidewalks, because it doesn't accomplish the things that the purpose and benefits set forth. You know, I think it's going to be a very difficult one to maintain. They're gonna have to have some sort of truck that has to pull over again on Route 3, one of the busiest roads in the city, unload some sort of tractor or small Kubota device to plow 600 feet of sidewalk and then get picked up and moved again. You know, I don't think the idea that it's something the city can maintain is really faced with the reality. I don't know how well they're being maintained currently, the ones that are in already established sidewalks. And to require one that requires, you know, a truck and a drop-off and a pickup, only exacerbating the amount of time it's gonna take to maintain it, in addition to all the other stuff that they already have to maintain, is, you know, questionable and not, it really kind of being more aspirational than the reality. Later on in your site plan regulations, the regulations for a waiver state that their special circumstances exist where strict conformity with any specific requirements would cause undue hardship or injustice to the owner of the land, or where the review procedures have been in general conformity with the regulations and provided the general spirit, intent, and purpose of these regulations. You know, where they're only asking for this one waiver, I think we're in general conformity with the regulations, and that we've met a number of other concessions the town has asked for during the technical review process and the approval process. You know, I don't even think it's very well defined who's gonna have to pay for all the drainage improvements along Route 3. You know, the state's not gonna wanna pay for it. It's not the developer's obligation. They just have to put in the sidewalk. They don't have to redo all the state drainage in the right of way. So I think,
The state doesn't like to do anything.
well, there is that, but that's, you know, not an issue I can have any control over. And, you know, the state, I don't think it's inaccurate to say doesn't want this sidewalk along Route 3 for the reasons I've stated. They're not gonna overrule the town, they're not gonna interfere with the town, but I think that their position on this should be something the planning board would wanna consider. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. And I, you know, assume that everything else that Nick provided last time is still on the record, and so any visuals that you need or plans that you had to review are already something you have taken a look at and could ask me any questions about. I could answer those as well. The only other, you know, I don't know if anyone had a chance to go out there. I know that was part of the continuance.
I did.
And, you know, seeing where that is and how close the slope comes into where the edge of the street would be and the sidewalk comes in, and that at either end, there's a change in elevation that's not consistent with the slope of the road. And, you know, I know there was a lot of talk about the ADA compliance and that the 5% recommendation is there, and it really is, as long as you stay on the slope of the road, you would still be consistent with ADA regulations, even if you go beyond that 5% recommendation. But you can't accomplish that at either end of their lot. You know, there's a hill already there that you have to then either, some other property owner's gotta completely regrade his lot, or you can't connect the sidewalks, because they won't be consistent with the slope of the road, and they will be more than 5 degree, which would be a violation of ADA regulations. So, I don't need to go on. I know you guys have already been here a while, but.
No, that's all right. You know, this is a tough situation, but and it's not just restricted to your development up there. All of Weirs Boulevard, all of Route 3, between Weirs Beach and the Meredith Town Line, you'll see areas of sidewalks and then no sidewalk. You'll see pedestrians walking from as far away as Weirs Beach, walking up to some of the establishments up there, day and night. You'll see them on the sidewalk, and then you'll see them along the side of the road because there's no sidewalk there. The city was sued, oh gosh, I want to say 10 years ago, but because 2 pedestrians were hit there on an area where there was no sidewalk. The city was sued because there was no sidewalk there. The court took the city off the lawsuit, but nonetheless, that, you know, there you go. if your development up there was one house for that whole big piece of property, in my mind, there'd be probably an argument saying we're not creating any pedestrians there. But you've got an awful large development going there, and there's gonna be a lot of people up there. If you're very successful. And those people, unless they're all unable to walk, a lot of them are probably gonna walk up the road to some of the establishments up there to enjoy themselves. I think maybe, I don't know what the setup's gonna be there during activities, and we'll say Motorcycle Week, if they have friends over for the festivities. Again, a lot of them are probably gonna leave their vehicles there and walk up the road. Will it be a sidewalk all the way? Apparently not. But even if there's 600 feet of sidewalk there, that's gonna be a major safety factor for those pedestrians. Because everywhere in the city where there's no sidewalks and there's high rate of traffic, such as Route 3, you're making a setup there for a potential problem. That's why we need sidewalks. And this has been going on as long as I've been on the board, which I guess is a number of years now, that developers are required to put a sidewalk in unless there's a waiver given for whatever reason. And that's up to the board, again, to decide, but, and I'm not poo-pooing ADA or, did I say it right? Any of that stuff. But the bottom line is, for the majority of people that are gonna be there, a sidewalk, wherever it is in the city, where there's a high rate of traffic, or any traffic, is very important. So I'm just saying that, you know, I don't want you guys to think that you're being signaled out for some reason or something like that. This is something that is right across the board. We had a developer in here from Weirs Boulevard at one time, and basically saying the same stuff about this is gonna be tough, we got rock formations and all this stuff, but the bottom line is that they're gonna have to put a sidewalk in there.
Yeah,
So,
And, you know, the argument isn't so much that it's gonna be tough, it's the way it has to go in, where you're gonna have a drop-off next to it, creates a safety hazard that you're trying to mitigate with a sidewalk.
Yeah.
And the other, you know, my take on it, and again, you know, I've been on your side of it, advising boards and towns on how to handle these things. I don't think encouraging any pedestrian or cycling traffic along Route 3 is a way to increase the safety hazard. I think more people will come out because there's a sidewalk and then end up off the sidewalk. And those properties are already developed down there. They're not gonna be coming for site plan regulations such that we're gonna have linkage of sidewalks 5-10 years from now.
yeah, I think by the mere fact that there's gonna be a development there, you're gonna have pedestrians. The sidewalk's not gonna encourage them to come out and walk. They're gonna be walking anyway, because that's what people do. And that's just my opinion. The rest of the board's gonna have their own opinion on it, but I just wanted to just say, you know, those things there, but,
And I don't really know if there's a safe way to get in and on and off of that sidewalk with the drainage swale
Yeah.
where it is, which would be another concern.
that would be up to the engineers, I guess, or who's ever in charge of that sort of thing. Anybody else on the board have any comments they wanna make or questions? Go ahead, Gail.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, Charlie. In that particular area, you get this mobile home park, so you probably open in the summer residence.
6 months a year.
6 months a year, okay, there's a significant size club up there.
I'm sorry?
A club, bar.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
the-
the wide open saloon, Tamarack Restaurant is up there. There are all sorts of reasons why people who want to stay, mini golf, I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why people in the place that you're proposing to build would want to walk not far to get, not necessarily even if they didn't want to walk all the way down into the Weirs, but there are things that would attract people to walk there, and it would be nice if they had a sidewalk to walk on, even if it is only part of the way.
Nothing new.
I have a question.
Sure.
I went out and looked at the site.
Can you lean?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I went out and looked at the site. Is there any way that, you know, we're talking about there's a buffer of trees that earlier last month, that there was some talk that those trees would have to come down if the sidewalk was to be installed.
There are some trees that would have to get removed, and there's also some landscaping improvements that will have to be sacrificed.
My question is, and I'm sure you'll be able to explain, is there any way that the sidewalk, instead of being right next to Route 3, could it be up on the property? that ran parallel to Route 3 and then came down onto Route 3?
No. There is a retention pond at the bottom
Familiar with that?
of the property, and then there's one lower. So, you know, to come down, and you'd have to come down far too steeply. You'd be putting in a stairway, really. And where the other infrastructure is on the lot, where they have built embankments for the road and things like that, you know, there is a potential spot around 10 feet to 12 feet, but that's exactly the area that I'm talking about that creates the swale on one side and the, you know, steep hill on the other.
But the sidewalk was a requirement before the project even began, correct?
It was a requirement before but the initial response from the town was that it was gonna be something that could probably get eligible for a waiver. And, you know, that's neither here nor there, really. But also, by the time they got the engineering done and put their drainage facilities in and just came up with a final plan, it just made it a much less advisable plan to go forward with. And DOT had not weighed in with the fact that they didn't want it abutting the street with a standard, you know, granite curb border. So, yes, I mean, it was already an adopted site plan regulation. I'm not disputing that in any way, but the reality of putting it in wasn't manifest until much later in the project.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yes,
Into the mic.
last June, when they made their initial application, I believe it was June or July, I don't remember what month, but, you know, we talked about how many sites are up there, and to say people aren't gonna walk because there's no sidewalk.
But that's not what I said.
Well, you said, Attorney Burton, that Route 3 is one of the busiest roads in Laconia. You have 100 people, 100 sites, maybe 400 or 500 people on a weekend. There's gonna be walkers.
Understand?
And someday, there'll be other connections to the sidewalk. And if we don't get the sidewalk now, we have a brief opportunity to say, we need it now. And if we say, no, you don't need it, 10 years from now, we're gonna say, why the hell did we not make them put a sidewalk in there?
Well, you could make it a condition subsequent. And
No,
if the
I'm
connecting
gonna make
sidewalk
a
goes in
motion.
10 years from now, they would put it in.
Right now,
Well, before, let's not make a motion now, let's wait, we can do that later. And we have to have public input on this.
It's also my understanding that there was already some voter direction that the developer doesn't have to put in the sidewalk, they just have to pay.
They want 200,000 in escrow. So you have this back on the board for demanding sidewalks. That was kind of off the table.
No, it's okay, that, we're not that far yet along. I'm gonna wait for staff on that, but understood. So, does anybody else have any questions here?
If I can just respond, though, my position was not that there won't be pedestrians. My position is that putting in a few
600
hundred feet
foot.
of sidewalk is gonna encourage more who are then forced to walk and bike on Route 3. So
Right.
it exacerbates a safety issue as opposed to mitigates it. Yes, you're gonna have pedestrians and cyclists there, I understand that. I you know, would strongly recommend against it if someone was telling me, hey, I'm gonna walk up the Fun Spot from here, but, you know.
No, I understand, I understand what you're saying, I don't wanna speak for Mike, but I think he's just taking issue with that, that particular, thought. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, now I'm gonna ask staff about the requirement to build a sidewalk, or we had talked about in the past, the escrow. And if you wanna just enlighten us how that ended at the last meeting, how that was decided.
So at the last meeting, we kind of briefly discussed, could we reach out to Public Works and get an estimate for what it would cost the city to put the sidewalks in there? And to possibly use that number to hold, such that number in escrow for so many years for the city to build the sidewalk. And if the city decided to pursue putting the sidewalks, and after that so many years, the money would be returned to the developer. So I reached out to Wes Anderson, the Public Works Director, and you should all have a copy of the email that he gave me. And I had already talked to Bill Ryder concerning this. Wes's estimate was $200,000. He said it might be a little bit low or it might be a little bit high, but without having final plans, that is his best estimate for what sidewalks would cost for the city to put in. So,
And if I recall, the cost of the sidewalk does not include drainage and stuff like that, but that would not be on the developer. That would be either on the city or state, whoever.
correct.
So the cost is just for the sidewalk, and if there's additional cost that comes with drainage issues or whatever, that would not be on the developer, that would be,
Right, we're just looking for it was just the cost estimate for just the sidewalks.
right, and that's the same situation we're looking at on Weirs Boulevard and other places where sidewalk will be put in. The city knows that it's gonna have to do drainage, potentially around that construction, okay. So, does the board now decide to take the escrow or require to build a sidewalk? Was that decided at the last meeting? Because I don't recall.
The board can decide to go in any direction it wants to go in.
So that
I
wasn't
think this is a viable solution as opposed to just denying the waiver.
Okay. And
One other thing we had asked after that conversation is if we could put up an improvement bond. So the city gets the surety, but we're not, putting a couple $100,000 in a non-interest bearing account for a decade.
And I just don't have a response back from our city attorney, but I think that would be an amendable solution if we wanted to word that into a condition to see if that was,
I thought we had thought that wasn't possible.
yeah, like I said, I haven't heard back from our attorney yet, so I don't know
So
whether
really,
it
we
is.
can't act on that because we don't
So
know
you
if that's.
could, if you could make it contingent upon approval from legal that we do that, and if legal says that we can't do that, then it's.
But
it's
then
just
we
the
have, don't we have to come
Then
back,
it's just an
come
escrow.
back again? I mean,
No, we could make it contingent that if legal says no on the performance bond, it goes into a cash escrow
For the same amount?
for the same amount.
well, now is, I guess, the time to entertain motions.
I would motion to do, the escrow and then contingent on the bond, I think, because what we talked about before was, don't we want it in the end to be uniform? Like, if everyone's doing this, if we do the sidewalks, don't we want them all to link up versus
Well,
just like?
that'll happen. What we're talking about now is this one particular project.
No, I know, but if he did it now without, just the, he just put his sidewalk in now, and then, you said there was some that were already in, sidewalks that were already in, that weren't uniform, like they don't match up, am I correct in
Well,
saying that?
it's not that they don't match up, they just don't link.
Or if they did link though, would they match? Because I kind of was under the assumption last meeting that if they linked up, there's still a possibility. Am I wrong in saying that they might not connect? Like they would, it's not lined up to connect right now.
Well,
That is-
no,
that is accurate.
the road is the road, the side of the road is the side of the road. So,
Okay.
right now, you've got, for instance, on that side of the road, you've got a sidewalk all along down in front of, where, the go-karts are.
Yeah.
Sidewalk on that side, there's sidewalk on the other side, for the
Right.
fun spot. So, it's just a matter of how these things are built, and then they link up.
All right. I kind of was under the impression the last time we talked that it would be better for the city to kind of take over and do the sidewalks, so they are all on the same page.
That's correct, but again, so the question is now does that, if we're gonna say you don't have to build a sidewalk, but the $200,000, is it held in escrow? And perhaps you should explain the difference, Rob, the difference between escrow
No, I get, so escrow, he would put the 200,000 in versus the bond, it's kind of, he's guaranteed if the city decides to build it, right?
Correct.
Then he does still have to put the money in, it's just basically, like you're saying.
How long,
And
Putting
if he
it-
doesn't put
not
the money
putting it
in, the
interest
bond
account.
pays the city.
Right.
Correct.
So you get the equivalent.
The bond would guarantee that payment of the $200,000 to the city.
But in the meantime.
Even if the applicant died, went away, became insolvent.
Right.
That's the, you know, he pays cash for the bond and they take the risk that,
they take the risk.
yep.
And is the bond for a certain amount of time as well, or is that
Yes, that would,
perpetual?
Tyler's drafting up a condition right now to kind of match the ongoing conversation we've had. And that would be it would be for a certain timeline,
So.
It would be what?
A
For like-
certain timeline.
5 years.
Is 5 years long enough?
No.
What period is long enough?
I don't think 5 years is. I got that impression right now in the back here.
I'd say 10 years.
I would agree with
10?
that. I would agree with that.
That's consistent
That's,
with prior.
that's consistent with what we did for, was that what we did for the
On Weirs Boulevard.
Weirs Boulevard?
Yep, 10 years.
So we did a project on Weirs Boulevard, and that was the timeline we gave them as well, was 10 years.
What's the benefits?
So
of
you've made a
delay?
motion, so a motion's been made to,
You need
Hold
to
on,
restate
time out.
this.
okay, go ahead.
We need to have a public hearing first, because we didn't have a public hearing at the last meeting.
We didn't have a public
We
hearing.
did not, so we have to
Okay.
open up the public hearing.
Okay, I got you, then we'll go from there. So you hold your motion there. Is there any other questions while the gentleman is
Just
up?
one on timing. What's the benefits of delay for, if it's 10 years, 5 years, versus take care of it now? In other words, if the site's gonna be developed and the sites are going in, why would we delay?
Well, I think to me, I think if the city's gonna do it, I think it's gonna be done, I think it would be better if the city did the whole thing, because then we're not having different,
Well, we don't know when the city's gonna move ahead with this,
They're
though.
not gonna do that. So
So
the
you're
money
saying-
would go to waste.
oh,
That's the concern
That's
I
a-
have, is
And
just,
the
why not
issue is,
address it now?
If we wait 5 years,
Thank you.
construction costs are gonna double.
Right.
200,000 isn't gonna, that's not even a dent.
Get a driveway for that.
That's correct.
So it was, back to the question of it, what's the merits of now versus later? I understand the benefits of now, I'm trying to get to what's the benefits of later.
You don't have the drop-off that they were suggesting, and you don't have the winter maintenance of a section of sidewalk that is,
That is, to me, is a
DPW
red
does
herring,
all the
because they've got
sidewalks in the
sidewalks
city
right up
anyway.
the next.
No, it doesn't.
They don't need to.
They're not plowing all the sidewalks now.
but they
We- we
should
have-
be, and they,
Well, they get up there, they
But-
get up to the weirs eventually. They just don't do it.
that is a concern.
We have 50 pictures from the day after Thanksgiving where there's no,
That's correct.
24 hours later, none of the sidewalks in the city were
That is
maintained,
correct. You
including
don't-
on the way up to the
we-
hospital.
Living here, I know that. It
6
takes
months out of the year.
sometimes 5, 10 days for them to get up there. I get that. So, any other questions right here? Okay, so we'll close this right now. Thank you very much. And we'll open this up to public comment at 8:08. If there are any abutters here or anybody else, come on up. Just state your name and address.
Mike Little, I live on Charles Street here in Laconia, and I would encourage the board to consider having them put the pavement in themselves. I believe, having been to Wes's presentations before, if the city takes it on, they have the responsibility to connect everything. So they're gonna have to take on more just to put in that one section, which, like Amy was saying, may not happen in 10 years, may not happen in 20 years. So I just think it's a consideration. If the developer does it, it gets done right now for that section, and we're not kicking it down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment at 8:09.
Mr. Chair, can I make one more comment?
Sure.
Just so the town understands what it's undertaking, whether we do them now or do the escrow, there's still the obligation of drainage and other things that have to be taken on by the city, which is gonna be significantly expensive. Whether, I think we had an estimate between $500,000 and $750,000 to build the retaining walls, tie in the drainage structure, and do that improvement. So, there's not an insignificant burden on the city as well to, put in a sidewalk system that where there's already properties developed that aren't gonna be coming for site plan regulation and aren't gonna be, required to put in sidewalks, isn't really gonna create a linked system at any time, in the foreseeable future.
Okay, yeah, so, go ahead.
I have a question. We're talking DPW. Do they have any authority on Route 3? That is state
No, it's a
jurisdiction?
state road, so
That is
DPW
correct.
has no jurisdiction on
That
that.
is correct. They can't put drainage in, they
No,
can't do anything.
the drainage is the state's.
That is correct.
So there is no responsibility for the city of Laconia for?
So, Mr. Chair, can I ask Rob a question? What you just said? So what we're doing, if we vote not to deny the waiver, meaning making them put the sidewalk in now, and I just want to get this clear, then what we're doing is tacitly obligating the state to do drainage work.
And I will point out that the state has already done that.
Okay.
You have sidewalk that the state put in going up Route 3 down towards Cumberland Farms in that area there. So this is not unheard of.
Okay, so we're not on, I just wanted to know, I didn't realize that little twist. I just wanted to know if we weren't on new twist and what we were obligating somebody to do, apparently not us, not the city meaning.
There's a crosswalk that's gonna go in up there, up by Cumberland Farms there.
Yeah?
That's a state road, but they're working in conjunction with the city
Okay,
on that.
all right, I just want to know what it is if it comes to a vote, what it is I'm voting on and what I'm obligating each party to do, as opposed to, that's all. I'm not against it or for it at this point,
Okay,
that's all I want, a clarification.
All right, so so now we can entertain a motion. We've had the public hearing. You guys on everything else you wanna add, right? Okay, does anybody wanna make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to deny the waiver.
Into the mic, please.
I'll make a motion to deny the waiver for, to have no sidewalks.
So, can I just stop, can I stop you for a second? You're gonna need a findings of fact as well.
Sure. I'll find some facts. Application PB 2025-022, deny the waiver because by denying the waiver, the city will get some sidewalk. People are gonna be walking on the road. They'll walk on a sidewalk and then they will walk on the gutter on the side of the road until it gets the gutter gets a little bit wider and more packed down. And people will be walking up that road to the Tamarack, to Fun Spot, the chicken place across the street, the go-kart track. 100 campsites, you're gonna have hundreds of kids there. They're gonna walk. So, what other findings of fact do I need here? Did I cover it all?
I think so. No. Okay, we got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay. All right.
Further discussion.
Any more discussion on
Yes.
this? Go ahead.
Like I said back in June, when the people first applied, we have a brief moment to make better for the city. A sidewalk is gonna be better for the city and all the people that use that road. Pedestrians and traffic. Don't pass it by.
I guess if I was gonna make a comment, and not just for these developers here, but any developers or anybody that's planning on doing development in the city, you gotta know that if you're alongside the road, you gotta put a sidewalk there, according to the way the city's been moving along on this thing. Again, I don't know how many years I've been doing this, but this is not the first go-round about sidewalks. I wish the city would come up and say, we're doing all these sidewalks at the cost of this amount of money to everybody in the city.
Well, Charlie, what I was gonna say to that effect is that, by putting this sidewalk in there, it certainly gives some leverage to next year's capital improvement program to include some sidewalks in that area.
Well, we've got,
And what I'm just saying it better positions a recommendation going forward to the city budget that we're concerned about sidewalks in that area and that.
well, we've
and that
certainly
we-
been doing that right along.
And we
so-
have, but I'm just saying this gives us just a little bit more reason,
Potentially.
potentially, to see something like that approved in a budget in the near future.
Well
That's
said.
all I'm saying.
Well said, Gil.
Well, the $200,000 is a lot of money,
I didn't say it wasn't.
but I didn't say you did, Gail. But the point is that somebody else is gonna be paying for that engineering, so,
Oh, yeah.
whatever has to be done, drainage or whatever. So, I guess $200,000 is not as much as it could have been. But again, and I'm not a developer, but I know, it seems to me that if you're making a big site, that you look at all your cost, and I would tell people coming into the city that you're more than likely gonna have to be doing sidewalks if your development is along the road, wherever it may be. And Counselor Cheney, you gonna say something?
I'm gonna vote for the motion, and I want to say why. If you've driven past that property, it's on a fairly sharp curve. And if we're gonna have people walking, I'd rather they all had sidewalks. But at least on that curve, to have people up on a sidewalk is why I'm voting for this. I don't wanna see anybody, kids or anybody else, walking on what's fairly narrow there and fairly curved. So that's,
I'd appreciate here, as the builder, to know exactly what we're talking about. That is dead nut straight road. He's talking about a different project on Weirs Boulevard.
The hill, he meant.
the hill.
It's completely asinine.
The
We're
hill,
talking
he meant
about,
the hill.
it's a straight road.
He
I'm
meant
sorry.
the hill, not a curve.
No, he knows where it is, so what he's talking about here. All right, so we've had a motion and it's seconded. Again, any other commentary? Friendly amendments, anything else? Okay, all in favor of the motion to deny the waiver, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All opposed? So it passes 6-2. 2, 4, 6, yeah. Okay, and that's that, and I'm sure there's other avenues at this point. Okay, we're moving now to this is new public hearings, 9.1. This is PB 2025-001, 1048 Watson Road and Hayes Road. Applicant is proposing to merge 2 lots and construct 52 townhouses. I think there's sidewalk now in front of that.
This will have a sidewalk,
Area?
you're right. I was listening with interest on this one and just went out in the hall, you might have seen me to confirm that it's a sidewalk. There's a
Yeah.
pathway there now, but
But
it's
it's not a
sidewalk.
pathway, that's paved.
Yeah,
It's a sidewalk.
Yeah,
Oh, I wonder who put that in.
not the
Somebody
prior
think,
applicant.
I'm sorry?
Not the prior applicant, I don't think.
No, I think, I can't think of his name right now, but I think when they put the RV sites in there, they put the sidewalk there. What's that? Yeah, Barry, thank you. I think Barry put the sidewalks in there because of the development he had there with the RV park right there.
Could be right.
And because before that was there was nothing there. It was just a field. And that goes back quite a ways. I want to say 93 or 94, when he started doing the RVs in there, specifically because of Motorcycle Week.
Well,
So
I'm
that-
certainly grateful that he did, and I'm sure my clients are too.
Well, but nonetheless, that's an example of what we're talking about here. And then you had Fun Spot put the sidewalk up along that area there.
We wanna,
Yeah, I'm gonna move along, but I just wanted, this, believe me,
Charlie's
I'm
little
conscious
stroll
of the
down
time,
memory lane.
but I wanted, this is, it's a good segue now into this thing here. Go ahead, sir. if you
Mr.
wanna
Chairman,
state
members
your
of the
name
board,
and go
staff, John Cronin again for the applicant. This project came to you a while back, and it was in the form of a storage facility. You may or may not remember it. Some of you, I believe, were on the board. There was some heartburn over the storage proposal, not because people didn't like the design and the layout or the utility of it, but there had been other projects in that area that sought storage-type uses that were denied, and felt for consistency that that wasn't a good fit. Mr. Loring, Nick Loring, the project engineer, and Mr. Grenier went back to the drawing board and tried to adapt to make it work, so everyone was satisfied. It had a short life with maybe some office garage-type mix, but that didn't seem to be the best for the market or the space. There were some suggestions for the need of some small-type efficiency, one-bedroom housing in that area where people might come for the weekend and enjoy Wares Beach and the lake and have a place to stay. Others thought it might be a type of product that maybe someone that already has a lake home, when they have all the family up and need a place, it might be nice to have an auxiliary space for kids or relatives while they're visiting. So Mr. Jakewith, the architect that Peter and his team work with regularly, he went to work and came up with some nice drawings. So those 52 units, they will be, have housing, each one of them, some efficiencies, some one-bedrooms. I like to think of kind of, if you've ever been a Residence Inn type layout, similar to that in that 800 square foot range, but certainly comfortable to stay in, give you some kitchen areas, some baths, sleeping in separate living space. At the same time, it would provide you ample storage below. So, the plan, the way that it's laid out, does have some space up between the sidewalk and where these are proposed. There'd be some short-term during Bike Week, some use of that space, how it's historically been used. And I think we reserved that, and we talked about it at one point. It'd be very limited, but that's something that we're seeking to continue to do. We've reviewed the staff report and the conditions that are proposed in that. We have no objections to any of them. So we're happy to entertain any questions that you might have. It's a pretty straightforward plan.
I have a burning question.
Shoot.
I do remember when you came that first time, and your statement was in support of the storage units. I think somebody on the board asked you why you weren't interested in doing residential units there, and you came right back and said it would never work next to that loud music and venue right there. So what's changed?
They're small. They're not the type of units that you would expect where people are going to make them, their principal house. When you look at a townhouse, similar to the ones that are being proposed over on White Oaks that we talked about conceptually, certainly they wouldn't be a good fit there. This is more if you would be a privately owned motel type space, and that was the thought that went into it. So the thought is whoever bought there and looked at it is certainly going to have eyes on the broken spoke, or probably know what it is and where it is, and probably want to be part of the action. And again, it's smaller space.
That's a high octane, and that is a great answer. I appreciate that. Because that makes sense. To a degree, it makes sense. So thank you.
Can you tell me what the actual square footage is for each one?
I think they vary a little bit, but I'll ask Nick or Pete to come up and give you a more precise answer for that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Loring. I'm with Benchmark LLC. We're the engineers on the project. The typical unit sizes are 18 feet wide and 36 feet deep, and that's the majority of the units. There are some, this building over here on the end, they get a little bit deeper. And then there's a few off on the end units that are a little different layout, but in general, they're 18 by 36. You're about in that 800 square feet per floor. There's 2 floors to them, 2 stories.
It's not tiny.
I'm sorry?
That's not tiny.
Well, you got a garage in there as well.
Oh, you got a garage in there?
Yeah,
Okay.
so they're average between 1,000 to 1,200 feet, 1,250, somewhere right around there.
4 of us.
And you stated earlier that there's still going to be space out front for RVs, a little bit?
There
out
will
there?
be, yeah,
Okay.
we're gonna maintain that front.
Okay. Is there thought given to Hayes Road? That's a busy road, obviously, especially in the summer. So will there be any improvement made to the visibility if you're pulling out of that road onto Route 3? Or do you think it's clear enough now that people can?
The traffic study and the engineer that looked at it, he said it'd be negligible impact and it met ITE standards. If it was something that people had concerns about, we could take a look at it. Again, as you mentioned previously, it's a state road and they don't like people tinkering with their things unless it makes good sense and it meets their warrants.
No, I, God forbid the state, I'm thinking about you guys, if it, on, you know, that's not on the state right away. Is there any interference now with visibility? I haven't come out of there and really paid attention to it.
No, you pull out, you can see very clearly both
Okay.
ways. Yeah, none whatsoever.
All right. Is there gonna be a street light or something there, put up there for you guys, so you can light that up a little bit?
No street light, we do have lighting there, right?
Yeah, as part of the plan set, there was a lighting plan included that where there's streetlights proposed inside of the development, not out onto Hayes Road. We do, in talking with DOT, we are updating our driveway permit for Hayes Road, so there are gonna be some improvements on Hayes Road. They're gonna, we're proposing to put sidewalks up the side of Hayes Road, pave that area up past our last driveway. And we're also gonna, standard stuff, there's gonna be a double yellow line, DOT has certain requirements. The stop sign, double yellow line, the 18-inch stop bars, things like that, to help improve safety at that intersection. But that's standard, requirements for DOT.
Okay. More good answers.
So
Any
that's
other-
something we've been talking with the owners of that road too, so we haven't ironed all of that out yet, but
Okay.
it's in a
And you'll be talking with staff about
We
that
have,
anyway,
yes,
so, yeah.
yes.
Go ahead, Amy.
So your plan is for this to be like an Airbnb situation? Or,
I think you're gonna have a combination of everything,
but your plan is not to have this to fix our housing problem? Or is it,
I missed the last part?
is it meant to be low-income housing?
No,
Is
no.
it meant for workforce housing? Is it meant for the people who already have a lake house and want this for their auxiliary, for their children?
I think as Pete said, it probably will be
I want to be them, but,
it would be me too. It'd be a combination of different uses. These will be sold, they're not gonna be rented.
Okay.
So say, for example, you bought one, you might wanna make it a place for you. You may wanna use it as a rental. And like any housing community, you know, you have a mix, certainly they'll have to abide by whatever regulations you have. I know Guilford just adopted that, short-term rental registration process that they have. I'm not sure if you have that. I remember there was
I
something.
don't think they do in that particular
In that area,
right,
it's
because
South Down
it's
Shores,
beach.
but the owners, of course, that buy them will have to comply with whatever the law is and use it within those limits.
Is that gonna be like a condominium thing?
I was gonna
Yes.
ask that, is this like a condominium? Are there
Yeah.
gonna, is there covenants that, you know, that are gonna dictate what happens there, or?
That's correct. There'll be a declaration and bylaws, pretty standard to what you would see in a condominium community.
A condominium more in a resort area than in a
Yeah,
residential area, so would
you
be
know-
kind of different things would be
We've done.
allowable that may not be allowable in a purely residential area in another section of the city.
Right. I think that one of the gentlemen in our conceptual, the architect, talked about not having a lot of impervious area to attract a lot of parking. Typically, you would see no commercial vehicles, no trailers, no storage, that sort of thing. So you keep the appearance neat and uniform for everybody. That would be the goal, and that's what typically we would see, the type of covenants there. So, you know, if you work, say for a steel company and you drive a truck back and forth to work, it's probably not a place you're gonna buy if you need to keep it in the front driveway, because it's gonna be prohibited, that sort of thing.
Okay, any other questions? I was gonna do the public comment, but go ahead. Or abutters.
That's fine, you can do public comment first, and I can save my question for the end.
Okay, thank you both. We'll open up a public hearing now at 8:29 for any abutters that may be in the audience. Okay, before we close it, we did have a question.
wait,
Couple,
don't close
I
it.
think we have somebody that
oh,
wants.
somebody, come on up. No, I wasn't gonna close it now anyway, because somebody had some questions I wanted to read out.
Hi, my name is Samantha Allard. I live on Hayes Road, and I'm here. The owners that own 2 parcels on Hayes Road, Stephen Gild and Brenda Tillotson, are currently in Florida. I rent from them. They have concerns about the traffic that's gonna add onto the road. Hayes Road is dirt, and I also own a small business at the end of the road. I own a small chiropractic business down there, so I'm concerned about how that's gonna impact my small business. I'm from Laconia, my whole family is, so like, I'm very ingrained into this community. So I'm just afraid that my business and my livelihood's gonna get pushed off of that little road.
So you're concerned about the condition of the road?
Yes, and also too, the construction that's gonna be happening there, how is that gonna affect the flow of traffic to and from my business?
Well, I don't want to speak for the developer, but I would think that all of their work is going to be on their property. It shouldn't tie up the road, and the developer is going to pave the road. How far up?
400 feet.
Say that again?
400 feet right to the end of our property.
Okay.
And there was a question, you can stay right there. There was a question that was emailed to us about,
And it was from her landlord.
say that
Yeah.
again?
It's from her landlord, I think, right?
Brenda Till-
You guys are
Yeah.
confusing me here. Yeah, this, I got it right here. Who's gonna maintain the road if it's gonna become a city road? And that's only gonna happen if the city decides to take that road over.
So if the city takes it over, are they going to pave the rest of it, or are they gonna keep that portion dirt?
That would be up to the city to decide. I wouldn't
Okay.
even venture a guess on that. Go ahead, Rob.
If I just want to add, there's no street acceptance or proposal for this to become a city accepted street. This is not changing the status of the road. So I just want to be very clear on that, that it'll remain a private road maintained by the private owners of the road. There was a question about whether this was accepted as an emergency lane, but no action was taken on that by City Council in 2019 when they did that. So I just want to make sure that we're very clear. This is a private road and will be maintained as a private road.
But I don't know what's going on up there with the plowing, but I know the city plowed that road for quite a while.
Yeah, as far as I know, they always have.
Right, and I don't know if that's still going on or not, Rob, and that, that's.
I don't know what roads DPW plows
Yeah.
or they
Well, I
don't
can
plow
tell you
or
they-
should or should not be.
I can tell you they were plowing that road, and
I think it's fair to say that the council would find it an emergency lane. They have so many others. I think for that purpose, they would
I think that anything that the developer does will be an improvement to that road.
Yep.
Especially as they're paving it to bring it to a DOT standard.
I couldn't agree more, but these are other questions floating around out there.
That's helpful, thank you.
And if you find that your business is being impacted negatively because of something you feel is being done that shouldn't be being done, you certainly can call this office right here, the three main people right there, to voice your concerns, and in which case they will then reach out to the developer and say, hey, you gotta fix this, or, what's going on with that.
Okay.
They respond a lot better if you scream at them.
With
Sometimes that's true.
Okay.
So,
Okay, yeah.
just let everybody know up there that's how
Okay.
that'll work on there.
Mr. Chair, are the access points that they've designated to get in and out of there off of Hayes Road, do those already exist?
Yes.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's openings in the stone walls.
All right, and the intent is to keep Hayes Road open completely during this construction?
It has to be, it
It
has
has
to
to be. Well, I just wanted to make sure.
be. Yeah, it does have to be. Okay, anything else?
Nope, that was it, thank you.
No, thank you very much for coming in, appreciate that.
Oh, you have more.
Oh, good, come on up.
And I'm Jim Borden, and I live on Hayes Road, and I haven't been told whatsoever about what's going on over there. And I do go down Hayes Road every day, and there's gonna be a lot of, if I hear this, being 52, houses being on, I think it's a lot of action over there, and I think it's gonna be pretty tight down there. There's gonna be a lot of action over there. I think it'd be too many on there. It'd be crowding a lot right there. And just where it is, I just feel that it's gonna be too much in that spot as it is. You know, if you brought it down a little less, traction right there, I think they ought to go in. If they go off the road, leave that road open for her so she doesn't affect what's going on in her business altogether. So the traffic's going out of there, it doesn't affect everybody going there, the people that live there, doesn't affect what's going on, because I have a family who lives there right now. So in my own house, and people lives on my, the city does plow there all the time. They take care of the road itself. There's a sewer on that road, so they do. It's a private road, but the city does take care of it. So that's my official, opinion, what I think they want to put there. So I just think there's too much in that spot. So that's my opinion. I've been building for years, so, and they get crowded. So I just think they put too much in there. So I think, I'll think about it more, shrinking down a little smaller. So.
All right, Steve,
that's
thank
it.
you very much.
Yeah.
No, we got one more. One up.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Serene. I have a house on Scenic Road, but I'm good friends with some of the people that live on Hayes Road. So they've kind of called me. I have a development background, so they had me look into this a little bit. As far as the private road, Laconia will stop plowing that road next year. That's what Wes told me. So,
Okay, we're gonna work on that. Somebody will. Council.
Yeah.
He's on the city council,
The
so.
council will review a request for that to be an emergency lane. Somebody can, I'll bring it up at the next council meeting.
yeah, I'd be very much interested in that, actually.
Okay.
The other thing that was discussed is that the developer will pave just to the end of his property, Hayes Road entrance to the end of his property. There also is some drainage questions for that road as well. I talked to Wes a couple of times about it, and he mentioned it to me. So it's not just a matter of paving the road, it's a matter of addressing some of the issues with the road as well. So I'm thrilled to hear that you're talking about an emergency lane. I think that's something I'd be very much interested in talking about. As far as the development is concerned, I've done developments of that size, and I was really surprised to see 52 homes on that road. I'm a little confused, though, because as I listen to this is my first involvement with it. I didn't know about it previously. But for the residents on Hayes Road, one of them had mentioned to me, they were confused about one-bedroom homes versus two-bedroom homes. We heard Airbnb possibly. We heard, they'll buy them, but then they can rent them if they want to. I heard something about storage. Is it storage, garage storage, or are we talking about additional storage on this site? I'm a little confused about exactly what's being built here. The other thing I heard was some RV space. Now,
No, the
The
RV.
RV's gonna be-
No, that's already existing there, up at the front,
it's existing,
and that's what's not changing.
okay.
That's not changed. That's nothing to do with the development itself.
Okay, so the RV space is not these lots.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. So that's about all I have to say. I was more
So,
concerned about
yeah,
Hayes Road.
And with regards to the drainage,
Mhm.
and I wanna stick my neck out here, but I would hope that when they go to pave the road, that the drainage will be addressed. And I would hope that the city will oversee that through the planning department, perhaps with them on DPW, to address that, to make sure that, I mean, I can't imagine they won't. Correct? Correct, okay. And, yeah, so the storage is just whatever goes with those units.
Right, that's what we're trying to be clear on, exactly what's going in there.
Right. So it's-
Initially, I was told it was all one bedrooms. Now I'm hearing there's one and two bedrooms, so I wasn't quite sure.
Just one bedroom? Just one bedroom?
All of them are one bedrooms?
Oh,
No.
There's a combination.
Right.
There's one, twos, two
Yeah.
bedrooms.
But the bottom line is, it's that number, 52.
52, correct. All right, thank you.
I just want to be, if I could just be clear for a second. It is 52 residential units that they're proposing, that they have garages underneath. And the site that we're talking about for RV It's part of their annual motorcycle week application, which is separate from this board.
That's correct.
Right.
So
I- I know it's
to add
separate.
a little bit more information so that people are
Sure.
a little bit more aware.
Yeah, that's just, it's being pointed out that it's gonna be up there. Go ahead, Bruce.
I hate to delay this any longer. It's starting to get painful. I look here and I see there's a 50-foot wide access easement to this property. And I presume that goes to
High octane.
out behind High Octane. Is there any reason we couldn't require them to use that for construction to take the activity off of Hayes Road?
I think that, I am not an
As a
expert on that.
condition?
I think that might be a discussion that would need to happen with Public Works and the developer and the owner of High Octane of when they're doing construction, whether that's gonna impact their business or not as well.
Well, but I'm looking at this, it looks as though it's a deeded access easement. And if it's a deeded, they're entitled to use it. I guess what I would ask you was, would you look into that?
I can absolutely.
And if that easement they're entitled to use, that we make part of the site plan approval, that they use that for construction purposes, which will take the pressure off of Hayes Road.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Just your name.
Kevin Hayhurst. I actually get to be in a butter on Watson Road and Endicott. What is the actual density? How many units they trying to put per acre here?
So,
Is that included the RV, the 52? Is that RV, those spaces included as well? Are you including
no,
all
so,
this?
so they got a variance for the density from the zoning board of adjustment. That was back in.
But that was for the other things they were building, correct? It wasn't for this?
No,
this
it was
plan?
for this. It was for 52 residential units.
And how many-
The
how many
RV part
acres?
that they do is a special events application, which is completely different.
So how many acres they put in the 52 on?
3.7. 3.7.
Roughly.
The answer is 22.
That's perfect. So as a builder, I love this project because all it sets precedent. I got land across the street. This is perfect. So you're saying, so when I go forward, I could do a 22, if you approve this, right, it's 22 per.
But without a variance.
No,
They
I'm
gave
saying,
them a
but I'm
variance
saying
to
you
go-
guys set a good precedent, right? So there's they're getting 22 here. I have the land across the street where I have 6, so I could do the same thing there and do
This
the
board
22.
did not set the precedent.
No,
for
no,
the
but I'm just saying, so there is a precedent set in the town. So yeah, I love this project. Thank you.
I'm afraid to ask.
Let's go.
Okay, any other commentary from the public? Seeing none, we'll close the public comments at 8:43. Okay, now staff.
We haven't accepted it yet.
We haven't accepted it yet. Oh, you're right. We have not. We'll have to have a motion to
I'll
accept
move to
this.
accept it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Gail seconded it. All in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous. Okay, now we'll have a discussion on this. Go ahead, Gail.
Just a quick question, I'll throw this more out to staff than the board. Because of the drainage issues that were brought up during the public comment period, I was looking through the findings of fact, stuff like that. Is there an engineering review going in? Are they required to do any kind of engineering for Hayes Road with the paving and stuff like that? Or are they just gonna slap a coat of pavement down on what's there?
No, Gail, we already said that wasn't gonna happen.
They're managing that through DOT.
Oh,
Hayes Road?
Hayes Road?
They're working with Hayes Road on their driveway permit.
That's the permit, but the question was the asphalt that's going up 400 feet and the drainage question that may have an impact on, or will have an impact on, that's gonna be looked at by DPW and/or you guys.
Yes, they still have to get a permit for that. It still has to meet city standards, correct?
Okay.
All right.
All right, I just wanted to make sure, because I was unaware of the drainage issues until people on that road mentioned them. that's
Well,
all.
how would we know unless we saw
Yeah,
it?
how would I know that? So,
Any other questions? Looking around to you. Amy? Okay, staff?
So if I could, just for a moment, to speak with the applicant. As we've kind of been talking, you refer to it as a condo, but in our application, we have it as a multifamily site plan, and we advertise it as such as a multifamily site plan. And I think if we wanted to do a condominium subdivision, we'd probably have to renotice that.
Okay.
and amend the application to add the condominium.
We'll get it approved as it's noticed if we can, if the board sees fit, and then we can talk
I
about
mean,
it.
it can come back in afterwards to
Yeah.
do the conversion. It's not, but it's just a technical thing. I just want to make sure that we were.
I got up just to mention, we have no objection to a condition if you want it, that we submit detailed drawings for the roadway improvements with the drainage, and either submit them to staff or DOT or whoever you want, just so somebody can
I would,
review it.
yeah, I would appreciate that.
For the construction, off of was it Watson Road?
Yeah, the easement goes to Watson.
We-
We could direct most of our construction coming off of Watson Road, but there will be some type of construction along Hayes Road that we will need access to. We will never at any point close Hayes Road down, and if we had to cross it to make a tie-in, we would always leave one lane open, and we would notify anything in the back. We work
And you
very
would,
well.
if
I
you,
think it just would help if you minimize the amount of back and forth, dust,
Absolutely. Yep.
you know, what the young lady was concerned about, that sort of thing. If you use that easement,
Sure.
that will dramatically reduce their concerns.
and I'm sure the Department of Public Works would insist that if they're closing, if they're making Hayes Road one lane at one point, they would have to have some sort of traffic mitigation out there to make that safe to pass.
We would, yes, yep, yep.
One last question from me. Are you planning on using that easement road as a second egress
No.
for people to
we-
get out?
We're leaving it on as a fire road, yes, yep.
But it's not going to be for the 52 units to leave instead of Hayes Road?
No, no, not at all.
It's actually too bad.
That wouldn't work, yeah. Okay, any other questions for staff? Is that all you have to say, Rob? You want to read through your requirements?
Yeah, we'll give this a read through here, just so we can read everything into the record. So we have our findings of fact. The application is complete and consistent with state and city land use regulations. The zoning board of adjustment granted a variance at its April 15th, 2024 meeting to allow 52 units of density, where only 22 were permitted. The zoning board of adjustment granted a variance at its April 15th meeting to allow for a minimum of 32% green space where 60% is prescribed. The applicant and site plans were reviewed by the Technical Review Committee at its July 16th, 2024 meeting. Their comments have been incorporated into the recommended conditions of approval, and the applicant has revised site plans, and those were reviewed by the Technical Review Committee at its November 19th meeting, and their comments have been incorporated into the recommended conditions of approval. We have our staff recommended conditions of approval. 1, pre-construction requirements. All conditions in this section must be completed at least 2 weeks prior to commencing any site work. Plan revisions must be revised and submitted to the planning department in accordance with the following. Trench detail must reflect a 6-foot minimum cover and sand placed 1 foot below and 1 foot above the pipe. Storm drain detail must reflect a 6-foot minimum to cover the top of the pipe. The grip ring must be removed from various details. End of main detail must reflect a short service with copper extending to the surface and a gate box assembly instead of a release valve. This must be set up in a way that the water department can connect a hose for water turnover purposes. 2 45-degree elbows must be used instead of 90-degree elbow when connecting to the water main. Utility crossings must be reflected in greater detail. The water main and hydrant branches must be reflected in the profile drawings. The water extensions to the abutting lot must be extended at least halfway across the lot. And the services to the lot must be shown in greater detail to include all connections and existing pipe. Relocate the dumpster pad out of the setback. Ensure Unit 53 is identified as motorcycle parking in event space. Permits and approvals. The applicant must possess all required permits and approvals granted by other municipal, state, and federal boards or agencies. All permits and approvals must be in place prior to the signing and recording of final plans and Mylar. Should any permit or approval be revoked at any time during the project, all work must cease until a new permit or approval is obtained. Copies of all permits and approvals must be provided by the applicant to the planning department upon request. Site security. The applicant must submit a performance guarantee for site improvement and restoration security in the amount equal to 11% of the total estimate cost for all site work. This guarantee must be submitted to and approved by the planning department. This performance guarantee will be returned to the applicant once the project is complete. Bonds will not be accepted to satisfy this requirement. Landscaping security. The applicant must submit a performance guarantee for site landscaping and restoration security in the amount equal to 11% of the total estimate for the cost of all landscaping or a minimum of $500, whichever is greater. This guarantee must be submitted to and approved by the planning department. This performance guarantee will be returned to the applicant after 2 growing seasons following the completion of the project. Bonds will not be accepted to satisfy this requirement. Erosion controls must be in place and inspected and approved by the planning department. The planning department will perform regular inspections to ensure erosion controls are installed and maintained correctly. Pre-construction meeting. A pre-construction meeting must be held between the developer and representatives from the Departments of Public Works, Fire, Police, and Water and Planning. Unless otherwise specified, all escrow checks must be received by the respective departments no later than 1 week following the pre-construction meeting. All other requirements in this section must be completed prior to conducting the pre-construction meeting. Lot merger. A voluntary lot merger form must be submitted to the planning department and recorded at the Belknap County Registry of Deeds at the applicant's expense prior to issuance of any building permit. Final plans. 4 final plans must be submitted to and reviewed and approved by the planning department. The final plan must include a floor plan for each unit. Construction requirements. All conditions in this section must be met during the construction of this project. Water specifications. All specifications for municipal water service required by the water department apply to all construction. Fire specifications. The applicant must adhere to all specifications as required by the Laconia Fire Department. Solid waste screening. All solid waste containers must be screened from view on all sides. NHDOT requirements. The applicant must comply with all requirements prescribed by the New Hampshire Department of Transportation for access off Endicott Street North. Post-construction requirements. All conditions in this section must be met prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy. Impact fees. Impact fees in the amount of $1,814.48 per new multifamily dwelling unit must be paid to the planning department in accordance with RSA 674-39. The applicant is exempt from any changes to impact fee rates for 5 years from the approval date. Should the project not be completed during this exemption period, the applicant must pay any and all increases to the impact fees regardless of investment status. As-built design. An as-built design application and fee for each dwelling unit must be submitted to the planning department for review and approval. Completion date. The project and all associated conditions must be completed by no later than December 3rd, 2029. If all conditions are not met, nor any extension application filed with the Laconia Planning Department by the completion date, this approval is null and void.
So I got 2 conditions here based off of what everybody was talking about. So the first condition would be for construction access, that the applicant must use the deeded access easement to Watson Road to minimize construction access via Hayes Road.
Thank you.
And the second was for the road details plan for Hayes Road. Details plan must be submitted with the final plans for us to review and have on file. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve if we're there.
Make a motion to approve
The application?
with everything they just
Well,
said.
yeah, I'll make a motion to approve application PB 20251048 Watson Road and Hayes Road, parcel numbers in the application, to approve it with all the conditions iterated by planning staff.
Thank you, Gail. Is there a second to this?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been seconded. Any more discussion?
I was on the zoning board that granted the variance for this project, and I had a lot of second thoughts about the density, but it is the Weirs, and
Oh, okay.
it's dense, and it's an interesting concept what these guys are doing, and it'll be interesting to see how it works out. I hope we
Well, that
didn't
explains
err.
everything, Michael. That explains
Do I
everything.
sound like Kamala?
No.
Oh, thank you.
No, you sound like Michael, actually, of the appeals board. Okay, anything else before we vote? All in favor, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In favor, all opposed? 2 opposed. Okay, well, good luck.
Thank you.
I know you're gonna take real good care of your neighbors up there on Hayes Road.
Yep, yep.
Thank you.
You understand we're running out of space.
Okay, we'll move along now to,
Exactly. You wait till you see what comes.
keep us in this stuff.
The only other option is up.
To 10.1, the Planning Department, monthly report.
So we just started our new impact fee study. We had our kickoff meeting just a couple weeks ago. So we're very excited about that. So we'll have a third-party contractor come out. They're going to walk through all of our facilities. They're going to get a tour of the city. They're going to look at our drainage. They're going to look at everything we have. They're going to interview all of our department heads, and they're going to look at our maintenance plans for everything, and decide and do an analysis to decide to figure out what we really should be charging people for impact fees, and come with some suggestions for us to change the zoning ordinance to reflect that new study. We also talked to them about the issues that we have right now with waivers that people request for impact fees, and that it is very difficult for the board to come to a conclusion of how much we should grant for a waiver. So they're going to come up with a solution for us, should you decide to pursue that. And it's going to be very measurable and easy to calculate out. So we're very excited about that. They should be coming out here next month. Which one are you looking for? To do a walkthrough with us.
Time frame?
About 6 months to completion.
Okay.
And that, I say that's for the study, and then there'll be some public hearings that we'll need to have after that. So they'll come to a planning board, they'll do a presentation here. We'll vote on whatever direction we want to take to move that forward to city council. Then city council will, again, have a presentation, and they make that final decision whether to adopt it or not. And the last one was done in 2009, so it's pretty out of date, so very excited about it. We had several administrative review applications come through. Nothing too extreme. We had a meeting with the downtown TIF, talking about a downtown revitalization project. We're talking about making that perhaps a congressionally funded project. So we're kind of looking at what timeline we're looking for that, of about a March submittal date, and we're coming up with an overall project of what should be encompassed in everything. So we kind of estimated like 1.5 million for the entire project, and it would be adding some lighting to the downtown parking lot, a lighting project downtown, like what was done down Canal Street over Main Street, some banner poles, enhanced landscaping, and some EV charging stations. So it's a pretty big project. We're still kind of finalizing. Oh, and a camera system downtown that would tie into the police department. So that's kind of what we've been working on there. That's pretty much the plan department in a nutshell right there.
You've done a lot of talking tonight, Rob. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll move on to 10.11, TRC draft minutes.
We just decided to add that. We thought it might be good information for the board to have. This kind of gives you a heads up of what things are in our pipeline and the projects that come forward, what review process it goes through before it even gets to you. That's something that we've never provided before, something that we just started doing. And we're just trying to be more transparent as a department and add that real public transparency of these are things we're requiring of developers as they come through. It's just so you see that what our entire review process looks like. We just thought that might be something the board wanted to see. If not, we can remove it and not do it again, but it's there just if you want to take a look at.
I think it answers the questions a lot of time. Did that project go in front of TRC? And so it's nice to look at and see what the outcome was.
Yeah, and it gives you a perspective of everything DPW asks, the water department asks, and answers and that go back and forth. So just a bit more transparency.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We'll go to liaison reports. City Council, anything? Okay. Lakes Region Planning Commission.
Haven't had a meeting since the last one that we reported on last month. That was
Okay.
when 911 came and gave the presentation,
Yes.
and we haven't had a meeting since then.
Okay. Conservation Commission? Nothing?
I'm not on it anymore.
Okay, do we have anybody on that?
We do not.
Okay, we're moving right along then. We know the Historical District Commission has not done anything yet, because we're still waiting to get through the weeds on that. Are you chuckling?
I'm kind of chuckling.
Oh, okay.
I feel like you've said that literally every time.
I've said
that
it for the
I've
last
been
6
on this
meetings.
committee.
Yep.
No, since I've been on the planning board.
Well, that just goes to show you how,
It's been a while.
that's been dragging along. Okay, any other business tonight?
The only thing I would ask, Mr. Chair, and I don't have a timeline on this, but is it possible to get a number of how many new housing units the planning board has approved?
We can absolutely do that.
That are like in that it would just be a good idea it would just help me get my head around what we've done and with this big project that we may get within the next 6 months or so. I think it gives me a sense of where we are as a city. And if that's too much, I don't need it next month. I just thought if that would be okay with you guys, I think it would be a good idea for us to just have that.
No, that's absolutely possible. In fact, we started a new, the city had not tracked that previously, and that has been something that we kind of collectively found a solution to how we wanted to manage projects and track those. So that is data we're tracking now, so I can get you to that next month. That's no problem.
Yeah, I mean, and if you don't do it next month, the month after, I think it just gives us a little bit of sense of, we see these individually. Be nice to know what the
Question,
big
Gail.
picture is as far as, because we got 90 units on Province Street that may come online shortly, hopefully. That's an important project to the city, because those aren't anywhere where the second home people are gonna buy. Those are 90 units people are gonna live in.
Okay, that's a good question. Let's go to 12.1. I know we've all been waiting anxiously for the CIP review. We've all seen the documents, I take it?
So each year we do our CIP process. Attached are the rankings for enterprise fund and non-enterprise fund as decided by the capital improvement committee. So at this point, it's up to the planning board to decide.
I would never take away from what the committee has done, all the work that they've done, so I would vote to approve as presented.
Wow. Is there a second? Okay, it's been second. Now discussion. Everybody was happy with what they saw?
I didn't say happy, I'm not number one, but
Oh, that's because they didn't put me on CIP this year. I gave you all my points.
Terry, or are we ready to, we had a motion, do we have a second on that? Okay, that's right. Okay, all in favor? Back to unanimous, congratulations.
No, that's not true.
Oh, did you not have?
I
yours?
abstain.
Oh, one abstention only. I did. So, been the one I might actually try to go to this year, but the city does have a Christmas luncheon or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
That you're all,
should definitely
since
come.
you're board members, you're all invited to go to that.
Suggestion?
And you can, just let Nancy know at the city manager's office. If you're
it's
gonna go to that.
December 19th,
Yeah,
that Thursday at the community center.
Just
noon
wondering how
or
much
what
work
Yes.
approving
Noon.
is actually getting done.
Noon.
So did you all hear that? Gail, you heard that?
Yeah, I got the invitation from, if anyone ever finds themselves.
What are you talking about? Bigger than Laconia? That's
Yeah,
outrageous.
that's outrageous. But if anyone ever finds themselves in western Massachusetts in the Connecticut River Valley, where I'm from, North Carolina, that's true.
I'm trying to think of us all being on,
Only means we have
confined to
to
a
keep
school
minutes.
bus.
Yeah.
I know, with beer.
All right, motion to adjourn,
I'll make that motion.
second, all in favor?